Hello colleagues! This video is about equipment connection and principles of it configuring and software updating. The easiest way to connect to the router is through the console. To do this, follow these steps. Connect the COM cable to the console interface of the router and to the COM interface of the computer. If there is no COM port on the computer, you can use an adapter from USB to COM. Open the console client of the computer, start the console connection on the computer by specifying the correct identifier of the COM interface of the computer and the console connection parameters specified on the screen. You can connect remotely using Telnet and SSH protocols. To do this, the following settings must be made on the router. IP connectivity is provided between the administrator's computer and the router. Processing of the packets of the corresponding Telnet or SSH protocol is allowed. The corresponding Telnet or SSH server is enabled. ESR routers are supplied with a factory configuration. Depending on the router model, it may vary. In the factory configuration, the termination of the broadcast domain with the IP address of the router itself is configured. A DHCP server is activated for this broadcast domain, which assigns IP addresses to the computers connected to a certain router interfaces. The broadcast domain is assigned to the trusted security zone. Protocols are allowed to work from the trusted security zone. DHCP to get an IP address. ICMP to check the availability of the router from the administrator's computer. SSH to connect to the router. The broadcast domain in the trusted security zone includes the interfaces shown on the screen. The interfaces range depending on the router model. You can connect to the router via SSH and start configuration as follows. Connect an Internet cable from the administrator's computer to one of the presented router interfaces. Enable the computer to receive an IP address via DHCP protocol or assign an address from the subnet. Launch an SSH client specifying the router's IP address. On ESR routers, the admin password combination is used as the default login password. When using any method of connecting to the router with the factory configuration, the user enters the default password change mode, in which only 4 commands are available. Log out in order to not to change the password and factory configuration. Password to change your password. Commit and confirm to apply and confirm a configuration change, namely changing the admin user password. Using the password command, we will change the password to the new password. Let's apply this change with the commit command and confirm with the confirm command. After that, the user automatically enters the privileged management mode of the router, in which you can run the entire set of commands to diagnose and control the operation of the router. Now, if you exit the router's management mode using the logout command and log in using the admin login and the previously set new password, you will no longer have to change the password. In the command line mode, a hierarchical configuration system is used. Auto-completion of the commands by presenting the tab key and prompts by pressing the question button are available. A system for applying and confirming configuration changes is also used. We will tell you more about it in the next video. You can update the router's software by downloading files from a USB or SD drive, as well as network data transfer protocols presented on the screen. This is true for operations like downloading any information to the router, software, configurations, licenses or certificates, and unloading it from router to a third-party server. To copy, the copy command is used, indicating the source of the copy and the section where it is made. For example, the slide shows several samples commands for copying a file over FTP, FTP or SCP protocols to the system section firmware. This section is shown on the screen for a reason. It is into it the software image should be written for use on the router. If the server is available and there is a file registered in the command in its working folder, after its execution, the software file download begins. ESR routers have 2 partitions for strong software images. You can view the contents of these sections using the show bootwa command. The output of this command contains information about software versions in each section, date of creation of this image, the current status of this image. The active status means that the image is currently being used by the router. The not active status indicates that the image is not in use. The software image is always loaded into an active partition. The fifth column of the output of the show bootwa command indicates which partition will be active after a reboot. In the example on the screen, you can see that the software version 109 is loaded into the second section. It is active at the moment and will be active after reboot. It can also be seen that the new software image version 140 has already been uploaded to the first section. To select the image with which the router will boot next time, the boot system command is used with the image number indication. You can see on the screen that changing the download partition requires explicit confirmation. To do this, press the Y key. After changing the partition for the next boot, the output of the show bootwa command shows that the first partition has become the partition for downloading software after a reboot, but at the moment the software from the second partition is still active. To activate the new software image, the router needs to be rebooted using the reload system command with an explicit confirmation of the operation. As you can see on the screen, after the reboot, the first partition becomes active. This means that the router has booted up with a new version of the software. And some more important information regarding changing the software version. It should be taken into account that when updating the software version, the configuration is converted. But when rebooting to an older version of the software, such conversion doesn't occur, and the router will boot with an empty configuration. In the empty configuration, there are no settings either for operation or remote connection to the router via Telnet and SSH protocols. In this case, you can connect to the router only using the console. The above shows that the remote software update to a newer version relative to the current one is possible. But rolling back to the software to an older version relative to the current one will lead to configuration loss. Therefore, it is more logical to roll back locally with a console connection. At the same time, it is necessary to make up a backup copy of the router configuration in advance. Let's demonstrate the connection to the router using the console. It will be conducted on the Ubuntu operating system when using the Minicom console client with an indication of the COM interface via USB to COM converter. After starting Minicom, you can check the parameters of the current connection. It can be seen that the correct parameters are configured. If you press Enter, the router prompts you to enter your username and password. After entering the correct parameters, we get into privileged mode. We can check the contents of the software images with the show bootwa command. It can be seen that the software version 1.14.5 is put to both images. Since there is a later version, you can upgrade. The router in the example is connected to a network with a TFTP server, on which there is a file with a newer firmware. Let's check the availability of this server. Then downloading the latest firmware version 1.17.3. After the download is completed, we will check the contents of the images again using the show bootwa. Now, in the second image, there is the latest version of the software. You can make it active after rebooting with the boot system image2 command in show bootwa. Image2 became the one for the next download. That's it. We hope the information in this video was useful for you. See you soon!